Hall of Fame, voice of the Louisville Cardinals, Paul Rogers joins us. Paul, thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate it.
Glad to. You and I have talked so many times, but never really met
I know.
physically. And now I was looking forward to this, and I couldn't get the darn sound on. I was hearing it earlier, and it cut out. But anyway, now it's back, so all good.
Very cool. Thank you very much, and hope your wife's okay. Hope she's doing all right.
Yeah, she took a little fall yesterday. We're trying to get into doctors, but you got to plan your fall 2 weeks out because that's when the doctor's available.
That's very funny. I thought you were going to say around your basketball schedule.
Well, that too.
Doctor's schedule. That's pretty good. First off, it's an honor to have you on. I've been a fan of yours for a long, long time, and not that you're that much older than I am, but just listen to you growing up on WHAS in Louisville, and then the Louisville Cardinals work for so many years. So it'll be fun to visit in person tomorrow. What's the thinking around the Cardinals program about a non-conference game here in mid-February?
Well, it's unusual. It's not unheard of around college basketball, but I can't remember the last time Louisville did this. Years ago, when Denny Crum was here, Louisville and UCLA used to play every year. And that would be a fun trip and a fun game. But I really can't offhand remember in recent years when Louisville's had a non-conference game at this time of year. But it's fun. It works out well because Louisville has a game at SMU on Tuesday. So they work this into the schedule. We'll be down there for a few days. And I think it's good. You know how conference is. It's such a grind. And it's always nice to see somebody new. And it is something to change the routine a little bit and kind of get you set up maybe for what's hopefully ahead in NCAA tournament play. So I think everybody's good with it.
That's good. Baylor and the Big 12, we did the Big 12 SEC Challenge for a while. I know you guys are doing something similar now. So that was sort of like this. The game started first in December, and then they moved them to late January. Yep. It is different, but it's almost like, it's almost like a breath of fresh air to play somebody that doesn't know every play call, everything you're going to run out on the floor.
Yeah. That's Louisville's thinking, and I'm sure it's Baylor's thinking too. And it's kind of a marquee game. There's a lot of interest in it when you get two strong teams, two very strong conferences. So I don't think there's anything negative to it. I don't think there's any rule that says you have to just pound week after week, game and conference play. So it's a nice little, as you said, breath of fresh air.
Yeah, very good. Well, Louisville seems to be playing really, really well. Great wins and, a dominating win over NC State on Monday night.
That was just one of those freaky otherworldly games. I mean, Louisville had a little bit up and down. They were winning, but you kind of felt like they weren't really clicking on all cylinders. Michael Brown had been back for a while, but missed that 8-game stretch with injuries. They had some other injuries. Baylor certainly knows about that. You're just trying to fit the pieces together, but all of a sudden it just all clicked, and just an otherworldly performance by Michael Brown tied West Unseld school record with 45 points. Ryan Conwell had 31, first time ever in Louisville history. Two players have had over 30. Wow. Louisville shot 60% from the field and from three. Defended well. Just the only problem with it, after seeing that, you really want it, and it's just you're not going to be able to duplicate that on a regular basis. But it did show them and us, I think, what this team is capable of, and all the things they've talked about. They knew they had a bunch of great shooters, and now they made shots, but they ran the offense. They get a lot of what they try to do. They're known as a three-point shooting team, and they are, but they get those with an inside presence. They really emphasize paint touches, getting to the rim. They outscore most of their opponents in the paint, so they don't just stand around the perimeter and shoot. And it all just came together the other night. It was very impressive to watch. Against
a good team. I mean, NC State's really good, aren't they?
You know what? This is going to sound silly, but going into the game, I didn't think Louisville would win.
Right?
NC State was playing that well. They hadn't lost on the road. Louisville, as I said, was kind of struggling to get the pieces together, and I was not optimistic going in that game at all. If they'd have won by one on a half-court shot at the buzzer, I'd have been thrilled. I never dreamed they'd win by 41 points, and I don't think anybody else did either.
How about Louisville picked second behind Duke in the preseason poll, and you're sitting there at 8-4 right now in the league. Has the season played out to this point like you thought it might, or a little bit better, or what would you say?
Not quite. The big problem has been that Louisville put together a bear of a non-conference schedule, and they knew there'd be challenges out there. But what's been a little bit disappointing is Arkansas, Tennessee, Then you got a conference play, Duke and Virginia, two of the arguably, well, I don't think you can argue Duke for sure, and Virginia. Anyway, their games against the really top-notch teams, they have not fared well. They've not won, and they've lost by big margins. Now, they did have some good wins over Indiana, Memphis, Cincinnati, a couple of others. But in the real marquee games that people are really fired up for, Louisville, frankly, kind of laid an egg. So from that standpoint, it's been a little bit disappointing. But again, they were going through the injury bug and all that. And I think they feel right now with what's ahead of them, not only this game, SMU, Louisville did beat them a couple of weeks ago, but they're good. And they still have games at North Carolina and at Clemson. So the opportunities are there to show, hey, Louisville can beat these top-tier teams. And they're hoping to do that here late in the year.
You were talking about big wins in non-conference. You didn't mention Kentucky. That's got to be up there, right?
How did that happen? Because that was a huge win at the time.
Right.
Kentucky has kind of had their struggles, but they're playing well again lately. And Kentucky has really had Louisville's number in the last 15 years or so. So, yes, that was a huge win. And Michael Brown did have a big game that night, too. So that is one. I apologize for leaving that one out. I don't know how that could happen.
No need to apologize. It leads me to ask you to let our viewers and listeners know what's that like being a Louisville Cardinal in the state of Kentucky. You're a UK grad. Also.
I did. I went to Kentucky.
Go ahead.
I grew up in Louisville, a Kentucky fan, in all honesty. My parents both went to school there, and I went to school there. But I always grew up a sports fan. I lived in Louisville, so I like Louisville, too. I'm not one of those people that just hates one and loves the other. I mean, Louisville is my team, obviously, but I've never been anything really against Kentucky. I mean, after all, they gave me the education to do this vocation that I love. But it's a little different. There's a lot of venom in the rivalry, and Jefferson County, the Louisville area, is full of Kentucky fans, obviously. It's the State University. But it's strong, maybe a little more Louisville. It's hard to tell. People will tell you basically 50-50 Louisville, Kentucky. But outside of Jefferson County, it's probably 99% blue. So Louisville's a bit of an island there, and they're always going to fight that. But I think they've earned the respect, certainly nationally, and I think around the state as well.
Wow. So out of college, you connected with the legendary Kaywood Ledford. That led to your long career, I think 47 years at WHAS radio in Louisville. But I grew up in Danville, as you know, and so I grew up listening to Kaywood Ledford. And what a treat that must have been for him to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I'd like for you to work on our great sports staff at WHAS.
Boy, was it ever. I got to know him a little bit at UK, not best buddies by any means, but he knew I was a student there and an aspiring sportscaster. And just as luck would have it, after my senior year, while I was there, I was working at the campus station. I would broadcast games. And after my senior year, they decided to expand their sports department. They actually needed an additional person because they picked up the University of Louisville rights. And they hired me, and I was thrilled to no end. You never dreamed you could start at that level. Unfortunately, I did them 1 year, and then we lost the rights. So I didn't do them for a while. And then when we did get the rights back, another really well-known guy in town, Van Vance, who had done the Kentucky Colonels for years. Well, the Colonels were now out of business, so Van picked up the Louisville job. And then he retired in the early 90s, and I took over then. So I've been doing them ever since. But, yes, it was a thrill to work for Kaywood. Listening to him growing up, I've always sort of modeled his style to some degree, I think. Although as you mature and go on, I think you kind of develop your own style too. But he meant a lot to me. A great guy, great mentor, and very, very well known around these parts to the older people. It's sort of scary a little bit when you talk to younger people and they don't know who he was.
Yeah.
But it just proves we all move on, and there's another guy that's going to come along behind us.
Well, isn't that the truth? And for Baylor folks, the best way to describe Kaywood Ledford is Kaywood was Kentucky's Frank Fallon. Frank Fallon was our Kaywood Ledford. Frank was our legendary voice of Baylor, who I got to work with for 8 years and then followed in this position. But
he did PA for the NCAA Final Four for many years, did he not?
21 years. You're exactly right. Yeah. And very well respected, just like Kaywood, that old school. Gosh, those guys were good, weren't they?
They were.
Ugh.
I think most of us now sort of envy that time when TV wasn't as prevalent. And you had to listen to us. It was kind of the glory days of radio. There's some great announcers from those days.
That's cool. Fun to reminisce about those two legends, really, in broadcasting. And this may not be interesting to anybody but you and I, but you mentioned the Kentucky Colonels. That was a great team because I remember watching them. I saw a game at Memorial Coliseum in Lexington one year. They played the New Jersey Nets, and
I think I was at that game too.
Well, I mean, that was the ABA. It was Dr. J, and it was a high-scoring game, the red, white, and blue ball. But that was a great team.
They really were, and they went a year or two. You know, the Carolina Panthers were the first sort of regional franchise. They played in, I think, Raleigh, Greensboro, and maybe one other city. And the Colonels didn't go to that extreme, but they would go over to Lexington and play 3 or 4 games a year. But the ABA was fantastic. There's a new documentary apparently coming out about the league, but it was a fun league. Those guys were fantastic athletes, and those guys who are still around, there's a great bond among them, knowing what a special entity the ABA was.
Yeah. There's a website, you've probably seen it, remembertheaba.com, which is really cool. A lot of history, and we're talking about something some folks watching us have never heard of. It was terrific. There were some great teams. I always am surprised how good Kentucky was, but they didn't make the cut. You know, they didn't make the
they were so close. That's a long story that a lot of people are still mad about because they were only like $300,000 short of what they needed. And
wow, is that right?
The amount they needed was like $3 million, which today is peanuts.
Yeah.
And you see what the Pacers went on to do, because Kentucky and Indiana were one of the primo rivalries in the league, and a lot of people still long for those days. Man, but what has happened with them gone is Louisville is now the NFL and the NBA. I mean, that's what the University of Louisville status is in this town, and so in a sense, I guess you could say it's been good for U of L.
Yeah, hey, that's great. Well, it's fun to reminisce. Final thought: I know this is a home and home series that neither game will be at home. Neutral site in Fort Worth tomorrow, and then next year it'll be Louisville's choice. Any thoughts on where that might be for that return trip next year?
To be honest with you, I had forgotten all about that, so I don't know. One, I would say reasonable solution would be Nashville. It's about 3 hours from here, or Indianapolis, either one.
Gotcha.
Indy's about 2 hours from here. Louisville has played in Nashville periodically. People like going down there. It's a good town. So I would, unless they want to make it someplace a little bit close. Well, I was going to say Lexington, but that probably wouldn't work. But just off the top of my head, I would say Indy or Nashville would be two likely places.
That sounds good. And that's a long way down the road. Look forward to tomorrow in Fort Worth. Safe travels to you. Hope your wife is okay. And look forward to visiting in person in Fort Worth tomorrow.
Thanks, John. Great to be with you.